The first time I met Lisa Bickle Stribling, she came to my home. My home happened to be Chillicothe Correctional Center at the time. I was in the middle of serving a 2-year sentence and had only recently given my life to my Savior. This tiny blonde woman and a whole gang of co-conspirators had somehow convinced the warden to open the gates of the prison so that she and her friends could ride in on this parade of motorcycles to share the gospel with convicts like me. I had read her book titled Next to the Last Vein while I was on the inside and was beside myself with actually getting to speak to her in person for the first time. The entire prison yard was full of approximately 1,500 women, and this atomic blonde stood on top of a picnic table with a microphone and shouted hope into our ranks. She was powerful and awe-inspiring. She told us that she knew what it was like to be us because she had been where we had been. Literally, she had been to my prison before and not on a motorcycle, okay? I remember looking up at her standing on the table and thinking to myself, that's gonna be me one day. Because if she could do it, so could I. Lisa and her husband had grown up on the streets of KC, running with the wrong crowd. They were addicts and became involved with a fraudulent check writing ring. When they were sentenced to prison in the 90s, they found the Lord. And since then, God has been busy redeeming Lisa and her entire family. Her story is truly one of God making beauty from ashes. Her brother, Mike Bickle, is the leader of Kansas City's International House of Prayer, known as IHOP, which Ray and Lisa have been involved with since the beginning. I had always looked up to Lisa as a prototype of someone as destitute and depraved and hopeless as I was, being able not only to have a new chance with Jesus, but a completely transformative adventure, a life full of meaning and hope and the courage to share it with the world. So when I saw a story on the local news about Hope City, a ministry founded by Lisa and her husband Ray, I knew I had to reach out to her and see what new frontiers this lady was taking on. Hope City is positioned in the heart of East Kansas City in a neighborhood that is incredibly underserved. As I pulled up to 5101 East 24th Street on a chilly morning, I was confronted by smiling faces. The place was before I even exited my car, which is joy, and you could sense that from the moment you got on the premises. I was about an hour early for our appointment, but I'd been up since before dawn and figured a little time in the famous prayer room might do me some good. As I walked in, another volunteer sitting behind a desk with a bouncing baby on her lap warmly greeted me. She was really happy, and she directed me right to where I was going in the prayer room, and I made my way through the dining hall. In the dining hall, there were hundreds of homeless and underprivileged people from the community there, and I understand that those people are served daily, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. When I arrived to the prayer room at 11 a.m. on Tuesday, I didn't expect to see an entire worship team and close to 50 other people giving praise to the Lord. It was such a wonderful sight. Some paced as they prayed and sang to the Lord, including Lisa. Others sat quietly and took notes, including myself. And still others were kneeling, pleading, and petitioning. It seemed like an hour passed by in the blink of an eye. As the clock struck 12, I made my way over to Lisa and introduced myself. And here I was at Hope City, introducing myself to her for the first time. She greeted me and whisked me off to a quiet room for our meeting. On the way, I got to meet her husband Ray, who has quite the testimony as well. But I will go ahead and get to the interview that I recorded with Lisa, and I hope that you guys enjoy. God bless.
As long as if I say something, I go, oh, no, don't say that. Anyway.
Okay, I'm here with Lisa Bickle Stribling, and I'm just going to ask her a few questions. So, you're an author, mom, prayer warrior, and have a thriving ministry in the heart of Kansas City's most notorious neighborhoods. Thinking back to your roots, did you ever dream that you would come so far, not just personally with the Lord, but also with your ministry?
Not in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I would be doing what I'm doing. But I always knew that I had influence. Mm-hmm. I always kind of just sensed that I was able to move people with my passion.
Right.
Even as a drug dealer,
right.
I could convince you to do anything. I just had that ability, and I knew I had it. And so it was just in the wrong place. But no, I never, ever did. Now, when I first gave my life to God, I had some sense that we would go somewhere, but never. No, I didn't understand.
Right. Awesome. Okay, so you kind of already answered this one, but can you pinpoint like a moment in your walk when you knew that you wanted to build this ministry and start serving the community?
Really, I always wanted to do two things. I wanted to pray, and I wanted to help drug addicts.
Yeah.
So I always knew that I was going to help drug addicts, but I was an intercessor. Mm-hmm. And so I felt like I was going to I became non-for-profit. I was going to, build a ministry, a company, whatever, of helping. And what I did is I began to move in that direction, and I was going to take girls to IHOP. So I was going to run a program through IHOP.
Right.
But somebody, this girl that I had helped in a jail cell, mm-hmm. I went to a jail, and I met her there, and I led her to the Lord. She got out, and it was 5 years later.
Wow.
And she called me and she said, I just got the keys to these buildings. And I want you to come see them because I'll give you the keys and you can do whatever you want in ministry. And I went, but I already knew that I was going to do drug addicts and IHOP. I was going to run a halfway house and have IHOP be the program out on Red Bridge. But when I got there, she screamed at me. I said, I don't want to do the buildings. I don't want to be here in the inner city. And she screamed at me and she said, you are in the wrong geographical location. And when she said that, I was instantly knew that the language that she used in that sentence was used years ago in a meeting that I was in by a prophet. Wow. Who was calling out another person, and I was listening. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about the geographical location. And when she said that, it was the only time I'd ever heard that sentence, and she said what he had said to somebody. I just knew that God was speaking. So I listened. I didn't have an answer, but I listened, and I went home and I had a dream. And the dream was that we were building an inner city house of prayer with tons of people in it, but that there was a robbery happening and our gold was being taken. And I knew when I woke up, I didn't understand still, but I knew that God was saying, I'm going to have you do the inner city house of prayer. I still didn't understand it. I had to walk it out. And there was a lot of little pieces that he kept adding. But it was at that moment in the end of 2004 and at the beginning of 2005 when I embraced that call of that assignment to do it. And so I said, yeah, I'll do it, God. It was a hard go to get it going. Mm-hmm. And there was a couple times we were going to quit, but was 15 years, we're in our 15th year.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it was actually, we just celebrated 14 years, but we're now,
right.
One of my teammates says, we're going into our 15th year. And so that happened, even though we had been knowing that we were going to be doing drug addicts probably since 2001, 2002.
Right.
And so
that's amazing. So ministry is a tough job, and I know a lot of times you don't get to see the end results of those seeds that you're planting. How do you stay motivated?
Oh my goodness. We have prayed and prayed and prayed, and we absolutely know without a shadow of a doubt we're going to see a historic move of God in Kansas City. And so I stay motivated even though sometimes it's hard to see the most favored of your people fall.
Right.
You know, the ones that are addicted, they go back to prison or they go back. But then we see my entire second tier team of Hope City is combined of the ex-incarcerated, the ex-heroin addict, the ex-meth addict. And so and they're doing it.
Right.
And so when I see you, I go, this is real.
Wow.
And God is doing it. And so I get encouraged, but God keeps my my heart in it through the prayer.
Yeah.
He keep just the prayer that we just prayed today. It keeps us like in it, you know, because we are paying the price in prayer, and I believe that the prayers count. So
Right.
anyway,
So what's the biggest struggle you've faced in building Hope City, and how do you lean on Jesus to get through that time?
the biggest struggle I think was the finances, and just to see, because we were little and it went boom.
Right.
And then we had this big thing, and we had support, but that was one of the biggest struggles. And space is a big struggle because it grows and it keeps growing, and you can see we're out of space. You know,
Right.
we're out of space. That the Lord sent teams, and He sent people, and so that. But then to run a ministry with several different departments. With people that don't really know, and I don't know because we've never done this.
Right.
And so we don't know. There's not a model
Right.
to go by. So the fact that there's not a model and you're the model maker for this particular type of thing, that's a struggle.
Right.
But God has consistently, when we get into a jam or even an idea that could be off the beaten path, I like the way my brother says it. He says, we're on the highway, we're in the right lane, but when we start getting off on the wrong exit, God, He just kindly, I would say that prophetic spirit has to be in our midst for God to bring us back.
Absolutely. Okay, so one of the videos on your websites that in putting together this ministry, you put the people second and prayer first. How did that decision come about, and what kind of positive effects have you seen as a result?
I love it. Our leader at IHOP teaches us, this Mike, he teaches us the first commandment has to be first.
Yes.
And the second commandment will fall into place if you can do the first commandment first. And so the Lord, if we were going to get off on the wrong highway or the wrong exit, He brought us back and He said, flip it around, because we technically were always a food ministry.
Right.
But we love prayer. And so when we started moving into a fuller occupation of what we were doing, a full-time ministry, He flipped it around on us. We always fed first, and then we prayed second. And I feel like I hesitate to say God spoke.
Right.
I don't want to say it like that. But I feel like He nudges us.
Right.
And says, flip it around and put the prayer first.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you came from a background of living a life of drug addiction and eventually ended up going to prison. Do you think that experience has made a significant impact on the way you minister to the needs of people in similar situations?
I believe it's Psalm 18 says that your gentleness has made me great. Your mercy extended to me over a lifetime causes me to give mercy to these guys. That the idea that I know what it's like to have kids that have head lice, that are hungry,
Yes.
that the house, you're shooting dope with the lights out.
Yeah.
The power's been turned off, and even the meter's been taken by the light company, because you don't pay your bill, and you're still shooting dope up in the hallway with the Bic lighter. That moment is one of the moments I think of not knowing where your kids are and running the streets and, running for 2 days at a time and not even knowing and not stopping. And just we all know that when we close our eyes, the degradation, the degradation, say it right, but anyway, that
Degradation.
the degradation of it is real.
Yeah.
The degrading part of that is right here.
Right.
So when I see him, I go, Lisa, and I try to get a lot of these guys to lead that way. That was you.
Yeah.
That was you. You can't have your frustration. You have to look with mercy, even though there's a time to draw a line. But that is a big deal. So
Those who are forgiven much love much.
that's it.
Yeah.
You're the little dirty little girl out on the street just like everybody else.
Yes.
You're that girl.
Yeah.
Get real.
Right.
Keep it real as leaders coming from that background impacts the way we lead. Keeping it real is the only way that you're going to come.
Hi guys, it's Mary again. I hate to interrupt, but around this time we actually had an audio malfunction. I did get the last part of the interview on the record, but I'm just going to have to go with the next two questions from memory. Apologies about that. So I also asked Lisa that a lot of my readers don't have the same type of background as she or I do. They feel a desire to get involved with prison outreach or people whose lives have been affected by drugs and alcohol, but are unsure whether or not they have anything to bring to the table. And I asked her what advice she would give them. Lisa said she would encourage them to take a year and really talk to God about it. It can be a tough ministry with a lot of tough people, so make sure you have your wits about you and be ready to put the time in. But if God really wants you in it, you will be. And another question that I asked her was, what would you say to the addict or convict who is dreaming of getting out and serving the Lord in ministry? And I remember very clearly Lisa said, hey, maybe you've already done a year or 2 or 5, and you've already had the time to spend with God in that prayer, and you're ready to come out and just start reaching the community. Maybe you're already there. She went on to say that she feels as though God is doing a work, and we are going to see a movement coming from ex-convicts and ex-addicts who are being won to Christ, and that we are going to see a revival coming out of jails, rehabs, and prisons, and going into the streets and using what the enemy meant to kill us in order to defeat him. The last question I asked Lisa, which I only recorded her answer, was this. Currently, Hope City has served over 475 addicts through your program in the last 2 years, and I'm sure thousands more. You've blessed the community with over 5,000 tons of food in the last 5 years. You have internship programs equipping people to serve the needs of the inner city. And last but certainly not least, you have the youth program and 24/7 prayer going on to intercede for all of Kansas City. What is your vision for this ministry in 20 years, and where do you go from here?
In our ministry, next week we're going to Chillicothe. We were supposed to go to, I'm not sure what's happening with that, but just to put it in there, and go to Leavenworth right after that, and then I'm going to Georgia, to a prison down there in a couple, in 6 weeks. So the idea that the prisons are really, really a part of our heart. What is our vision? I believe that there's a revival coming. I believe that it's going to get really, really dark outside and really crazy, and that's going to continue to increase, but that God's going to anoint people like us to be a voice for him in the hour when it's the most confusing, historic time in history. Biblically, it says that it's going to be dark. I'm going to give you the book that I just wrote another book. But that God would raise places up like this and other places in inner cities that can be a voice. I believe there's a revival coming. I believe we need more room, but there's, food ministry is going to grow because the hungry
Getting hungrier.
going to get hungrier.
Yeah.
And so, but I believe that signs and wonders, healing. We're contending for the healing anointing. We're contending for the sick. We're contending for all these things, and so I see it. I could really tell you, but I would make you quit. I would make you stop it. But I really see the nation changing in a huge way, and that us being a voice in the middle of that change to give us a path forward, to see the drug addicts really be marked with that forerunner message.
Right.
I don't care who you killed. I don't care what your past is. We're all in it together. And instantly, I tell these guys, instantly God can turn you around and make you a part of something. I was just in Vandalia, and a girl said to me, I want to be a part of a movement. She's in prison. God's speaking to her.
Yeah.
She knows exactly what's happening. You know what I mean? We don't have to wait. God's igniting people. And I find that we're going to birth a movement of souls of the drug addicted that God will take stories like mine and flip that dirty little story into something amazing and beautiful. And I that's where I see the next 20 years going. More and 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 more as we pray, God touches.
Amen.
Come in here and just keep praying. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Anyway.
Fantastic. It was wonderful to
I'm gonna
talk
get you.
with
I'm gonna
Thank
get
you. So
you.
much.
You have a book.
I have the Next to the Last Vein.
I'm gonna get you a book. I'm gonna get you the new book, and I'm gonna get you the T-shirt, and I'm gonna get you Devil the Dope Man.
Oh my goodness.
The track.
Oh,
so you can
wow.
have it
Thank
all,
you
and
so
that you
much.
can give these guys a vision. I like to tell
Yes.
people in the prisons. I had a pen.
Did you
I
want
was
to
arrested for forgery when I was a dope dealer.
Right.
I had a gift, and I could go in, and I had several identities, and I got several charges. But that was a knack that I had. I had a lot of knacks,
Right.
but I could go in and convince you to take this piece of paper and
Right.
get whatever I wanted. God used that knack to write a book. I still have a pen, but now we're
flipped it
writing.
around.
And so you tell those kids.
Yes,
You tell those
absolutely.
guys. Whatever your knack is, God can use it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So, guys, that was my interview with Lisa, and I just hope that you guys are as refreshed and motivated by what she was saying. It's hard to not be around Lisa and just feel completely energized. I went in there that day kind of groggy, been up since the crack of dawn, and I came out just like ready for a mission. And I feel a lot like that girl in Vandalia now who's just saying, I'm ready for a movement. I want to be part of a movement. And so I completely am in agreement with Lisa about revival coming. And my prayer for you guys this week and as we go about our days is that we can just be creative with the tools that God has given us today, with the things that we have at our disposal right this very moment, to just share the love and mercy that Jesus has given us and the forgiveness that he has given us with the people around us, the people closest to us, the strangers at the gas station or at your job or wherever you're going. I just pray that we would have that courageousness and that boldness to just speak up for what is righteous and what is pure and what is good in this world. And also that we can just look on each other with a little bit more grace than normal. And when we see people going through struggles and we see them in the depths of addiction or homelessness or whatever the case may be, whatever their struggle is, that we could just have grace for them and see the way that God can take a situation like Lisa was talking about and just flip it around and just merge us right back into, the highway, the narrow road, and take ashes and make beauty, because God is powerful. And he can do those things. He can change my life. He can change Lisa's life. He can change your life. And I just pray that we have grace for those people. And I hope you enjoyed it. Please log on to the website. Follow the blog. It's the Christian Girl's Guide to the Galaxy.com. And I hope you guys have a very blessed, productive, purpose-filled day. Have a great day. Bye.